countries have more to benefit building bridges between each other than erecting walls. This research output and this explosion in high-quality research that is the engine for all the innovation that we're now seeing out of China. Technical depth and the deeper you can go into a particular area is something that will help you potentially start a business.
Welcome to China. So, how do you feel about this trip?
It's been incredible. I've been in Beijing, Guangzhou, Shenzhen, Shanghai. I met with many AI entrepreneurs. The speed and volume of innovation is incredibly impressive. Visited great startups, but also some of the more famous Chinese companies as well. Baidu, Tencent, Alibaba, BYD, and what I've seen has been incredible. I got to spend some time with some of the top executives as well, learning a little bit more about their plans. I also got to drive the BYD U9, which is setting records at the moment on the track, and that was quite a privilege. An amazing trip to China.
Yes, back to the Web Summit. Web Summit has been founded in 2009. Under what kind of circumstances did you start this forum?
In 2009, the economy in Ireland and much of Europe had collapsed. Unemployment went from 2 or 3% to 20% almost overnight. Businesses were closing, businesses were going bankrupt, and there just wasn't much opportunity. And I thought, I don't have much else to do. Maybe I should try and bring some of the most interesting technology entrepreneurs in the world. At that point, the founders of companies like Skype, YouTube, and Twitter to come to Ireland. And that became the early days of Web Summit.
Yes, the Web Summit has become the global technology forum. So look back over the past 15 years. You have witnessed a generation of young people who has just started their business. So from your perspective, what are the most significant changes you have observed for those young people?
Over the last 15 years, I think the opportunity for young people by location has changed. 15 plus years ago, 2009, I think most of the most interesting innovation in the world was happening in Silicon Valley. And that was somewhere that everybody wanted to be if you were a young technology entrepreneur. Over time, I think that has changed. For me, China over the last 15 years has become the most important center of research and development and of innovation. And increasingly, the most interesting companies are being started in China. And they're exporting all sorts of products to the world. There's a very interesting think tank in Australia, and they've been tracking which countries have been leading across just over 60 high technology fields. And around the time of the Beijing Olympics, China was leading in, I think, about 5 of 60 plus high technology fields. And today, China is leading, as per their latest report, in every high technology field, except for 5 out of about 64. And that, to me, is an enormous shift in a very short period of time. I don't think ever before in history has the world's center of innovation across almost every field shifted from one part of the world, the West for the most part, east to China.
I see from the global perspective. So what kind of unique environments and mechanisms has China Europe, America, each developed in supporting youth innovation?
I think at the heart of it lies policy, because policy shapes the environment within which entrepreneurs can emerge. And I think entrepreneurship is a very late stage part of a wider cycle. The innovation, in my mind, for the most part, occurs inside of universities or publicly funded research laboratories. And entrepreneurs merely commercialize or take to market breakthrough technologies that have been developed by researchers. What's happened over the course of the last 2 decades is the measurable rates of research output in important fields has increased in China to a point has completely surpassed the West. For example, if you were to look at, say, patent filings, about 75% of all patent applications come from China. China used to be way behind the West, and it's just over the last 2 decades has completely surpassed the West. And inevitably, much of these breakthroughs are coming from universities or university-educated researchers internal to private companies. And so it's this research output and this explosion in high-quality research that is the engine for all the innovation that we're now seeing out of China.
So what kind of unique environments and mechanisms has China, Europe, America each developed in supporting youth innovation?
This research output and this explosion in high-quality research that is the engine for all the innovation that we're now seeing out of China.
Which one will be the motivation to increase the standard of technology innovation? This kind of change is more driven by capital or by technological advances. Do you agree or not? Yeah, speak of the contribution to the innovation. We know private sector, maybe public sector, and the individual are totally different. So you think which one will be the motivation to increase the standard of technology innovation?
Government intervention to support foundational research and development proved to be incredibly important for the development of Silicon Valley. Without the government, it's very difficult to see Silicon Valley developing into what it is today. In a sense, Silicon Valley was really just a subsidiary of the US Department of Defense, now renamed the Department of War, who funded endless nascent technology at huge expense. Over time, and Silicon Valley started to move from being a military-only town to a town that started to sell to the private sector. And it proved to be a very, very successful model. In short, without government involvement, underwriting the high-risk, high-cost R&D that's needed to develop breakthrough technologies, I think it's very difficult for then entrepreneurs to emerge and capitalize on all this innovation. Breakthrough R&D occurs for the most part internal to publicly funded research laboratories. And sometimes those laboratories are internal to private companies, but the majority of the funding, the majority of their funding for decades upon decades for R&D was coming from the US government.
From mobile internet to blockchain to artificial intelligence, the hotspots of youth innovation are constantly shifting. So you think this kind of change is more driven by capital or by technological advances?
I think oftentimes It can be a combination of factors, as was the case with aerospace. I think the development of aerospace as a very important net export industry for the United States occurred as a consequence of massive state intervention. The US government underwrote the cost of huge R&D in the sector, and then was the purchaser of all of the early generation jet engines, aircraft bodies, and over time, some of both the components and the planes that were developed in this incredibly costly long-term program were privatized or commercialized. They were sold on the private market.
There's an opinion which is talking about maybe the huge motivation from government in the innovation area will reduce the individual's motivation to do the innovation job. Do you agree or not?
I don't. I think government plays an incredibly important job helping set the rules, helping implement policy that creates the fertile soil from which the private sector can grow. And without direction and planning by governments everywhere, I think progress is slowed. Progress, in my view, is led by sensible policy making that thinks 5 and 10 years and 20 years into the future. Oftentimes, companies are thinking about the next month, the next quarter, and maybe the next year. So without good policy making, good governance, I don't think you can have good entrepreneurship.
You think which one will be the motivation to increase the standard of technology innovation?
Progress, in my view, is led by sensible policy making. Without good policy making, good governance, I don't think you can have good entrepreneurship.
How can the entrepreneurs to combine the localized application with the original technological breakthroughs better? What kind of technology maybe in the future will be the breakthroughs? Under the major trend of artificial intelligence, how can the entrepreneurs to combine the localized application with the original technological breakthroughs better?
I'd have to say I think Chinese AI companies are doing a good job at the moment. They are leading the world. There was a moment earlier this year when DeepSeek released a model that outperformed OpenAI. Not only did it outperform, it was built using far less resources, both compute and cost. It was just incredible. It was like an earthquake, I think, in the West. I think there are differences at the moment between Western entrepreneurship and what's occurring in China. There are exceptions, and you should be careful to generalize. But my experience meeting Chinese AI companies is they have little to no PR or marketing departments. In the West, the PR and marketing departments are incredibly important. It seems that Chinese AI companies are overwhelmingly led by a desire to just build the best AI models. And in the West, of course, companies are very focused on this as well. But then there's also an incredible emphasis placed on marketing over just pure sort of engineering. And I think it's interesting to consider what that means.
What kind of technology maybe in the future will be the breakthroughs in the next 3 to 5 years?
Over the last 3 to 5 years, the Chinese automotive industry has been transformed. by a number of incredible companies. The rate of innovation is unprecedented, and now China is the manufacturer of the most important and most advanced cars in the world, which also happen to be cheaper than the best cars that can be produced by Europe or the United States. Over the next 3 to 5 years, again, I will say that I think aerospace is incredibly important, just the same as semiconductors and the related components that are part of that overall supply chain.
When we talk about the artificial intelligence technology, also brings some ethical and social challenges such as data privacy and algorithmic bias. How do you feel about those challenges? How can we facing those problems?
And I think privacy is a huge challenge in the modern world, a world that is almost entirely digital. ISO standards have determined the standards or cryptographic standards for digital communications. I think, unfortunately, over the last number of decades, the standards agency, there's growing evidence of a sort of corrupting of that agency, a corrupting of the standards process. And I think it's incumbent upon all countries to seriously consider building new and truly multilateral institutions and frameworks that ensure that the privacy standards that are set are truly at the cutting edge and they aren't compromised by any rogue states or actors. A number of years ago, we had a speaker at one of our conferences who came into the possession of NSA documents which showed that ISO standards in cryptographic standards were deliberately and very carefully and perniciously corrupted by the NSA. They were also then under the table paying mostly US, but also Canadian companies millions and millions, in some cases tens of millions, to maintain these cryptographic standards in their kind of core technologies. And these scandals, and these are only the known ones, I think really just bring into question, to reiterate what I finished saying, the very basis of these standards. And I just think it's time for probably, I don't think they can be reformed. I think it's just time for new multilateral organizations. It seems that Chinese AI companies are overwhelmingly led by a desire to just build the best AI models.
So how can the young people, or we just say the market, to prepare for this? What kind of prepare the company should do? Talking about geopoliticals, will this influence on the youth startups?
In the short term, of course, Chinese entrepreneurs and companies have to be mindful because any blocking by the West of exports to Europe or to the United States in the short run can hurt a Chinese company. But in the long run, I think it's not beneficial to the West. It's only beneficial to Chinese companies.
There are still some challenges in the globalization. So how can Web Summit bring people together to enhance the cooperation, not only just in the business area?
Web Summit may be, there could be another event, the most global gathering of technology companies in the world. And I think if you're an ambitious entrepreneur, selling into as many markets as possible is something you, of course, want to do. And I think trade between countries has a very positive impact on making the world a more harmonious and peaceful place. I think countries have more to benefit building bridges between each other than erecting walls. I'm hopeful over the coming years, more and more countries, especially where I'm from, Europe, become interested in building better bridges with China and other countries, because there's only, I think, opportunity from that.
So how can the young people, or we just say the market, to prepare for this, especially some young teams?
Well, I think it starts in university. I think it's just very, very important in today's world to not just study hard, but become a true expert in a particular field that either interests you or that you think is going to be an important field. That's where education is for me, is everything. China is leading the world in so many areas of high technology, the vast majority of them because of excellent education in STEM and world-class research universities, producing world-class researchers who are making all these breakthroughs that entrepreneurs are then taking and turning into successful businesses.
Youth innovation, maybe pay more attention on. It's focusing on the technical depths, or do they need to enhance the cross-border disciplinary capability?
I don't think it's binary. I think it's both, and it's maybe sequential. I think as a technical depth and the deeper you can go into a particular area is something that will help you, potentially start a business. And if that business is successful initially within China, there are huge market opportunities in the rest of the world.
So both.
Both, I think, and think about technical depth first. Achieving some market position, perhaps within China, and then go to the world.
What kind of role will Chinese innovators play in the global innovation job?
I think they will play the most important role. I think we're only at the start of a huge Chinese wave of innovation. I think maybe even the real inflection point won't start for another 5 or 10 years, because once China establishes a significant lead in almost in every sector, that's when I think you'll see takeoff and a huge leap in a rate of innovation that's just never happened in the history of the world before.
If the company want to entering the global markets, so what kind of prepare the company should do to maybe will help them to explore new opportunity in business?
Just get on a plane and go out there and just meet people. Business is about relationships at the end of the day and reputation. I think today Chinese companies have the highest reputation, arguably, of any set of companies in the world. Almost every day, some Chinese company is setting some new record or releasing some the most advanced this or that. Again, I just say, get on a plane. Hopefully, it's a Comac plane, and go build relationships. Business is built on relationships. I got to spend some time with some of BYD's team, seeing some of their latest technology that will be released soon, and it's unbelievable. I also got to see some of Baidu's new tech, which is available and integrated into cars, and I got to test out some of that technology in their cars, and it's inevitable. It's great.
It's naturally will happen.
Yes, I think so, and I think artificial intelligence will find application in all sectors of our lives.